Mrs. Johnson, you're looking mighty fine today. Mrs. Johnson, won't you come with me and run away? Mr. Johnson, is that smile really yours, or did you take it from somebody when you were bored? If it ain't nailed down, you put it in your pocket just like my love. You got it in your pocket. Mrs. Johnson, won't you give me a twirl? We're gonna dance over every square in the world. Mrs. Johnson, give me a twirl. Feeling so lonely with you, let's go down somewhere new. I'm feeling so lonely and blue. I'm feeling so lonely with you, let's go down somewhere new. I'm feeling so lonely and blue. You gotta find a little bubble, ride it to the top. You gotta ride a little bubble up, up, up. Find a little bubble, ride it up till it pop it up, 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 up. You gotta find a little bubble, ride it to the top. Ride a little bubble up, up till it pop. Boop it up, it pop, boop it up, it boop it up, 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 it pop, boop it up, it pop, boop it up, it boop it up, up. Even though every bone in my body may be broken, Mr. Johnson, if you leave me, I'll be choking over you. Please keep me laughing and joking around. Mrs. Johnson, I've more chance of plotting fuck than keeping you, because I'm an ugly frog. Mr. Johnson, with a smile that wide, gonna need a boat to cross it to the other side. Mrs. Johnson, get up off the floor. I don't believe I've seen you looking that way before. Mrs. Johnson, get up for some more. Mr. Johnson, won't you give me a twirl? We're gonna dance over every square in the world. Mr. Johnson, give me a twirl. Rather be lonely with you than dance with someone new. I'd rather be lonely and blue. I'd rather be lonely with you than dance with someone new. Rather be lonely and blue. We gotta find a little bubble, ride it to the top. You gotta ride a little bubble up, up, up. Find a little bubble, ride it up to it. Pop it up, 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 up. And when the bubble bursts, you fall back to the bottom. Find another bubble, get into my trouble. Ride a little bubble up, up, up to it. Pop it up, 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 put up, 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 put up, up, boop it up, up, up. You're alive in a bottle of champagne.